You are watching Bloomberg Tech Europe. Coming up, while the world is watching Beijing and Washington slug it out for AI dominance, London has been quietly asserting itself as Europe's tech champion. With investment in artificial intelligence surging, is the UK's tech sector benefiting, now valued at £1.2 trillion? We speak to the founder of the UK's most valuable AI startup, who says London's AI moment is real.
I feel like the energy in the ecosystem has never been greater. I'm now had the pleasure of being part of London Tech Week, of being during this energy that is building out in London.
We speak to Stanisewski of ElevenLabs, Evantic Capital's Matt Miller, James Wise, chair of the UK's Sovereign AI Unit, and Liz Kendall, UK Secretary of State of Science, Innovation and Technology. So, welcome to Bloomberg Tech Europe. London Tech is on a tear, with Britain leading the AI wave in Europe. So what is behind the explosive growth, and how did the UK capital become a global centre for artificial intelligence? At the core of this boom is a world-class human infrastructure. In the centre of London, around King's Cross train station, the Knowledge Quarter, as it's been come to known, is a one-mile cluster of universities, labs and tech firms.
For decades, King's Cross meant one thing: somewhere you passed through, not somewhere you stayed. Centred around a railway station, it was grimy, crime-ridden and derelict. A multi-year £3 billion redevelopment changed that, transforming a huge area of decaying rail yards into a global model for urban regeneration. Its success helped the tech industry to notice what the UK has to offer.
UK has one of the richest AI communities anywhere on the planet. The deepest thinkers, the best universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial College, amazing startups. Today,
this area, dubbed the Knowledge Quarter, is fast becoming one of Europe's most important hubs for artificial intelligence. Google's billion-pound headquarters is here. OpenAI is setting up its largest research base outside San Francisco, and Anthropic is expanding to house up to 800 staff, all within walking distance of each other and of the Alan Turing Institute, the UK's national centre for AI research. The attraction isn't just geography. The UK government has launched a £500 million sovereign AI fund, along with a national strategy and lighter regulation than the European Union. And the early signs suggest that bet is paying off. In total, the UK's tech sector now has a combined market valuation of $1.6 trillion, with AI companies accounting for a third of that, according to a recent report by Tech Nation. Globally, the UK ranks third for AI talent, boasting an AI workforce of 56,000. By 2033, AI firms are expected to take up 4 million square feet of office space in London, roughly the equivalent of 8 Gherkin towers.
Meanwhile, across the UK this month, a packed calendar of buzzing tech events is and has been drawing founders, investors, government and engineers. It's a sign really of just how much momentum the sector has right now. London Mayor Sadiq Khan says the UK's capital city can turn this confidence and the energy into lasting global leadership.
In the first quarter of this year, London-based startups are off to a flying start, pulling in over a third of European equity and over half of all funding for AI. This just goes to show that here in London, we're not waiting for the future to arrive, we're busy writing it.
London's return to the top spot is driven then by record AI investment, rising from less than $4 billion in 2024 to $7 billion last year. And overall, London tech companies raised close to $18 billion US. That's up by 45% from 2024. The city is now home to 138 unicorns, including Wave, Granola, Olix and ElevenLabs. And founded in 2022, ElevenLabs uses AI to create a variety of realistic voices. The company is valued at $11 billion, north of $11 billion in its most recent funding deal. The company is the UK's most valuable AI startup. I caught up with co-founder Stanisewski at London Tech Week. He says a growing number of founders believe they can build global companies from Britain.
It is the moment. I feel like the energy in the ecosystem has never been greater. I'm now had the pleasure of being part of London Tech Week, of being during this energy that is building out in London and across Europe. And I feel now people realize the incredible talent we have, that you can really build a global company from here, from the start. And people want to do it. People want to work on ambitious projects, want to show what's possible. And the number of startups, the number of individuals and talent that is going after that couldn't be more real. And we feel that at ElevenLabs, but we also see this across the wider ecosystem.
Do you feel like you've catalyzed that message to some extent? You've demonstrated with ElevenLabs, valued north of $11 billion that you can actually build a globally scalable AI company out of the UK.
We were proud that we could start here. Both my co-founder and I studied in UK. Most of our early team was here in London. And we, from the start, thought that you can build here, and you want to build globally. You want to compete with the biggest companies out there and show that you are leading on benchmarks, leading with customers, leading on outcomes. And that was always the ambition. And I hope that a number of people, of course, after that followed, seen that effect as well. We are seeing now more, happily, more of the ecosystem building, where some of the people that were early joiners will leave to start new companies. Some of our people will join companies here in UK to grow with them. But one thing that's very interesting that we are also seeing is a lot of people around the world want to come back here, whether that's senior talent joining ElevenLabs, whether that's talent joining other companies, and build from here. And of course, we saw the Isomorphic Labs recently, the announcement, also an incredible story. So I feel this will just get more momentum.
That talent flow back to the UK, that's material, that's significant, and you're seeing that impact, and that's changed. Is that a this year story?
I think this last 12 months definitely a big effect. Another piece is, so as I think about ecosystem, the talent part is changing, the risk approach is changing. More people are keen to start companies from here and just take that big swing, big bet. Third thing, I think in US, one of the big appeals of Silicon Valley is that the big companies buy from small companies. If you're an early company, you know the risk that you need to take. You are still going to take that risk. You'll give them the chance to prove the value, prove the outcome. And recently, we've seen that in UK and in Europe too. Of course, now we are a big company, but over last year, whether it was Revolut, Trainline, Deliveroo, all of those companies are taking those risks, are working with some of the frontier AI companies to elevate, and of course, together with us to bring that experience. And we too now give a lot more chances to young upcoming UK companies and European companies to give them ability to scale.
Have you ever come under pressure from your US investors to move to San Francisco?
Luckily, they are aligned that there's a huge advantage in us being in Europe as well. And that's one of this is talent. That the people we have in the team are some of the hardest working people across the company. We have majority of us across Europe. We have now almost 100 people here in UK, scaling to 200 over the next few months. And we think this is our big advantage to some of the companies from US, where people in Europe want to work for ambitious companies, frontier companies. And here they have the chance. They know that whether it's London, whether that's some of the other cities, you are part of the core team building for the world. And investors realize that too. Of course, we spend a lot of time in the US working with our customers there. We have some of the biggest customers like Meta in the US, but we found a way to balance it out.
Matti Stanisewski, co-founder of ElevenLabs, speaking to me at London Tech Week. So founders like Matti, of course, are optimistic. The figures show investors are also paying attention, and we've seen that global AI firms are expanding their presence here in London. But can government policy keep pace with the industry's ambitions? I caught up with the UK's Technology Secretary, Liz Kendall, about Britain's plan to become an AI powerhouse.
We're in a race for this AI future, and I want Britain to win. I'm not naive. I would count myself as an optimistic realist, I'm not running the same race as America or China, but I believe there are races that Britain will win on, which is why we've made this huge announcement this week about backing British AI hardware companies. Someone said today, whoever wins on compute wins the race. It's the absolute power engine of AI. And you're not going to get better biology or financial services or logistics services unless you have the very best chips. And we know that although some people think the market's sewn up, it's not. It's diversifying. And we have incredible potential there with our great British talent and great British innovators. And this government is going to bet on Britain because we believe in Britain and because we believe that we can win this race in these new chips. And that's why we've put this £1.1 billion investment into AI hardware during London Tech Week.
I spoke to an investor yesterday and she said we need the most ambitious political agenda since the Second World War to ensure that we have a seat at the table when it comes to AI.
I think she's absolutely right. I mean, we're going to see the equivalent of the Industrial Revolution, but in a decade, and we are in this race for the future, and we're determined to win for Britain. And that point about having a seat at the table, I would go even further. If you want to have greater sovereign control over this increasingly powerful technology, that's not about isolationism or pulling up the drawbridge and attempting to go it alone. It's about becoming a kind of keystone in the global tech architecture. So you become an indispensable partner. I don't just want a seat at the table. I want Britain to be an indispensable partner. And I think this race on compute and the AI hardware of the future is absolutely critical to do that, which is why we've put such a focus on it.
What's the biggest impediment? Is it energy costs? Is it unpicking the regulatory network? Or
well, it's also just about turbocharging planning decisions, which is why we've put data centres further up the priority list. Because look, data is the engine of the economy now. We've got to treat it as much a part of the infrastructure as the roads and the railways. So we're making those planning decisions, driving that forward more quickly. We're combining it with the clean energy and big developments like nuclear. That is how we secure our position, because we need to build those data centres and quickly.
How do we ensure that the value of some of the startups that are starting to grow at rapid pace here in the UK accrue to the UK public? I think the companies are at Revolut. Most of that upside is going to go to their US investors, not to the UK public.
So that is why we have said we want a decisive shift to backing more British AI companies. It's why we've launched Sovereign AI, £500 million to back British AI companies, combined with action to unlock wider support from the state, whether that's super priority visa decisions, free R&D, free access to our supercomputers, or critically, unlocking access to government procurement. Don't forget the billions of pounds government spends in the NHS, in defence, that we want to see invested in British companies. We want them not just to start up, but to scale up and stay in the UK, which is why our announcement on Sov AI, on procuring the first large usable quantum computer. We've got a £1 billion quantum big bet on that, and our AI plan, all about investing in those companies, saying the government backs you, we'll unlock the talent, we'll unlock the wider support, because we want you to start up and scale up and stay in Britain.
UK Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Liz Kendall. Coming up, how has London emerged as an AI innovation and frontier tech champion then? We're going to discuss with Matt Miller, founder and managing partner of Evantic Capital. That is next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Tech Europe. Now, it is clear then that London is on a winning streak when it comes to AI. But how does it sustain that momentum and, crucially, nurture companies to scale? I spoke to James Wise, general partner at Balderton Capital and chair of the UK government's Sovereign AI Fund. He says policymakers must work with investors to help firms here grow.
Over £6 billion was invested into the UK alone in the last quarter. That's more than the whole of continental Europe combined. It's many magnitudes where we were 5 years ago. And if you look at the scale that companies are getting to, people often criticise the UK for having companies which sold out too early. They went to the US too early. But actually, you look at the scale now, we have companies raising at £1 billion valuations, £10 billion valuations. There may even be a £100 billion private company announced soon. So overall, it's really robust. The challenge, of course, with everything is keeping that momentum going in the right direction. And obviously, that's what we're doing at Balderton and what I've been doing with government as well.
What does the UK AI Sovereign Fund role in that? What is the role that fund plays in that £500 million? How significant is that really, given the huge amount of capital that we're seeing invested, particularly in the US?
Yeah, so I was brought in as chair to set up the Sovereign AI Fund over the last 6 months, and we've launched, and we've had incredible interest from industry. It's been really reassuring to see technologists, entrepreneurs, and investors give us huge amounts of support. Our goal is to help more UK AI successes scale globally, right? As mentioned, we're great at starting these companies. We're great at getting them going. We've struggled historically to scale them. That is starting to change, but there's two big levers we want to get right with sovereign AI, because we believe AI is a different industry compared to many other areas of technology. It's so significant and so general. One of those areas is making sure government is a supporter. And I think many entrepreneurs will say historically, government's provided more challenges than it has support. We're trying to change that. Partly we're trying to change that with capital. But to be honest with you, it isn't really about the capital. The capital is there to make sure the taxpayer has a stake and gets rewarded when these companies go well. It's really about the other things government can do to make companies a success. That's procurement, that's providing data, that's providing lots of different expertise of navigating the very large infrastructure that the government has here in the UK. And look, it is an ambitious project. It's taking risks, and that's something else we want to bring in to the heart of government. And I think, one of the things I have noticed is we get criticism. Anything you do in government rightly gets criticism. But we're here talking in a week where SpaceX is likely to go public. SpaceX's first contract was about 20 years ago from the US government. It was about $300 million contract, and that's resulted in huge capabilities. The US now has more launch capabilities than any other country in the world, and it was done by a great entrepreneur and a great team, but it was a government procurement contract that got that company going. At Sovereign AI, we hope we can replicate just a small part of the success that other countries have had in this kind of way.
OK, James Wise there, General Partner at Balderton Capital and Chair of the UK Government's Sovereign AI Fund. So how do you scale on this side of the Atlantic? We have the perfect voice to bring in at this point. Matt Miller is a former partner at Sequoia Capital, who last year founded the $400 million UK-based venture capital fund, Evantic Capital. The fund is an investor in London-based AI, including ElevenLabs and Synthesia, with a global focus as well. But certainly you have exposure to the UK AI system and ecosystem, Matt. Fantastic to get you in the studio. Is the government doing the right thing by putting money to play around hardware and its sovereign fund? Is that the solution to getting companies that can scale?
Yes, so I think it's a wonderful effort, and I'm thrilled that they are doing it. But I think it's ignoring some of the bigger problems that we have that would allow a bigger unlock for us. And James just was on talking about SpaceX. I think SpaceX has had access to incredibly affordable energy, incredibly attractive policy in building its facilities in Texas in particular to do its launches, to operate its data centers, especially with XAI in Texas and in the southeast of the United States, that we just don't have here in the United Kingdom. And if we really want to bolster London's role as a global AI tech player and as the second best city in the world to build an AI company, we need to have access to cheaper power so that we can have many companies that are building data centers. And it's not just the government that's the only ones going and building it, but industry is able to come in here. And we don't want to have OpenAI announce plans to go build data centers in the UK and then pull out because they find that the regulatory is too complicated, that the cost of energy is too expensive. The dollars, I think, are better spent on providing more attractive energy for all of the citizens of the UK, for all of the businesses that want to conduct here, rather than targeting it at a few specific companies that already have lots of capital coming their way. And British taxpayers do get to participate in them because the British Business Bank is an investor in many of the best investors who are here in London. So it already is benefiting in the upside of the AI wave. But I think if there's more money to be put into the problem, it should be putting into making data centers and infrastructure more affordable.
So if that's the key roadblock, the most important roadblock is energy and regulation.
Yeah.
Then this money towards chips and supercomputers is a misallocation of resources.
It's positive, but I think that we're missing the bigger issue, which is the bigger issue, is energy is so expensive in this company for people looking to pay for their power as individual consumers, then let alone these big supercompute farms that we hope to create here in the UK to have sovereign AI. I think this is the challenge that we should be addressing, is taking a step back and how can we have cheaper energy, more reliable and more available energy to the people and to the companies and to the AI boom in the United Kingdom.
What do you think the solution is on energy?
I think that we need to be investing more in building affordable power plants.
Yeah.
I don't hear all announcements about new power plants, new power initiatives. We should be addressing, should we be bringing nuclear back? Nuclear is a very efficient source of power in the United States and France and other countries. Can we not be using some of these great technologies here? I know we're investing in the future and fusion and things like that, but we should be investing in the things that can help us reduce the cost now.
And the kind of companies, we've got a graphic that shows the kind of companies that have raised significant amounts in the UK, and you've got exposure and you've invested in ElevenLabs, which is one of the standouts, of course, but you've also got Isomorphic Labs, Nscale, Wave AI, Multiverse, Ineffable coming through with, I think, one of the biggest seed round raises in Europe in history, more than 1 billion. These are the kind of numbers we're talking about, but what we're really talking about now with you, Matt, is how to drive that momentum and the physical unlock that has to come through. Yeah. I want to talk about incentives for employees as well. What do they need to do on tax and options?
Yeah, so I think that there's a tax question of making London, continue to make London the most attractive place to come and to build and to live and to thrive. And so there's a tax component of, there's considerations of raising the capital gains tax. And I understand the need to address rent seekers and other issues who may be taking advantage of the capital gains tax regime here in the UK. But capital gains is the engine through which people get compensated to take the risk to go work for earlier stage companies and invest in the future. And they want to be able to participate in that upside. And by taxing that at higher and higher levels, it makes London a less attractive place to go and build relative to other places that you could be in Europe or in the United States. And so we need to think about ourselves as, from a tax policy, we need to be globally competitive in what we're asking people to contribute. Yes, this is an incredible place to live, be, and build, but we need to be competitive with the other places that are great to be and build as well. And we need to think about that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let's see if the government is listening to that bit. I also want to get your take on what you're investing in right now. You've got this portfolio building out. You've got capital to put to play. What are you most excited about? Where are you seeing opportunity?
Look, over half of the dollars we've invested so far at Evantic are in the United Kingdom, in companies like ElevenLabs, Synthesia, and Ineffable. And these companies are thriving and growing. But I'd say, as I work with these companies, their biggest challenge is actually not electricity, because they've got data centers that they use all over the world to grow their businesses. Their biggest challenge is actually not yet the tax policy, but it's labor. It's being able to hire people quickly enough. If you think about these new AI neolabs, Ineffable being one of them, that are being funded and built here in the UK, and you talk to them, the biggest challenge they face is that when they want to go hire somebody great, they've got to wait 6 months until they can start, because the UK enforces notice periods and non-competes. In California, we wiped out the enforceability of notice periods and non-competes. So you can have a job at OpenAI and you can quit and you can go work at Anthropic the next week. That's better for workers because it causes them to treat their people better, and it's better for if we have that here, it would be a more fluid labor market for our companies.
Visas, tax and energy. Matt Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed, founder and managing partner of Evantic Capital. That is it for Bloomberg Tech Europe today. We're going to look in the next episode towards the stars as SpaceX readies, of course, for that IPO. Europe's ambitions in space. That's the next episode, July the 10th, here on Bloomberg TV. Stay with us. The Pulse is next. This is Bloomberg.